Part 2. When he was again seen in the streets, shaven and clean, he looked like a young man. His chin sparkled with the long-delayed shave, and his mustache was trimmed to perfection.
He looked so tidy when he went along the street again with his shirt and upper cloth that people stopped and asked, "Where have you been all this time, Margaya?" He had no answer. So he said, "Here."
All along. Where should I go? I haven't seen you in your usual place or anywhere.
Usual place? Oh, there, you mean. That was only a side business for me, more for my own diversion.
I'm busy with other plans, he said grandly. About the time he closed his business, he had 200 rupees in hand, out of which the previous month's household expenses took 60 rupees. The 40-day ritual cost him at least 2 rupees a day for fruit and flowers and special offerings.
Then he had to have a feast on the last day and feed 4 Brahmins, and give them each a silver rupee on betel leaves after the meal. About 100 rupees in all were gone. He found himself grudging this expense and explained to himself, "How can I grudge it?
Can't a man spend at least so much for earning the benevolence of a goddess?" He had a magic syllable carved on leather and tied to his sacred thread. He wished he could know when the beneficial effect would start, when the skies would open and start raining down wealth.
He wished he could get an answer to his question. In his despair he tried to meet the priest. But somehow the priest had not encouraged him to call again.
For a day Margaya was seized with the horrible thought that the man had played a practical joke on him. What if he had merely fooled him? Priests were capable of anything.
Every word that the priest had uttered seemed to lend support to this suspicion. He had even taken the trouble to avoid him. Days passed, and his misgivings increased.
He seemed to have suddenly lost all plans in life. His purse was getting lighter each day. It was difficult to while away the time.
From morning to night he had to think what he should do next. If he stayed at home, it invariably resulted in some clash with his wife, for his son misbehaved so much in his presence that either he or his wife felt impelled to chastise him, and each vehemently protested when the other did it. And then all kinds of controversies started between him and his wife.
It was such a strain having always to talk in whispers, lest the people next door should overhear. He sat dejectedly facing Goddess Lakshmi and mentally saying to her, "You have taken my last coin. What have you given me in return?
Has the priest been fooling me?" He felt indignant at this thought. If he has fooled me,
God help him, I'll have my fingers round his throat. As he lay across the hall on a towel spread on the floor, his mind was busy with these thoughts. In that small house, it was a bother to have the head of the house all the time lying across the floor.
Margaya's wife had quite a number of visitors coming in each day. A brinjal seller, who brought in her basket, walked across the hall and sat in the backyard veranda to transact her business. The servant woman who came in to wash the vessels and scrub the backyard an hour a day, a fat lady, wife of a lawyer, who dropped in for a chat in the afternoons.
And some school children who came running in during the afternoon recess for a drink of water. When Margaya lay across the hall of his house, he obstructed their passage to the rear veranda and kitchen where the lady of the house received them. Every time a visitor arrived, Margaya had to scramble to his feet and stand aside to let the visitor pass.
They went on and asked Margaya's wife privately, "Why is your husband not going out?" The lady felt confused and awkward and gave out some reply, but later questioned him, "What has come over you that you don't go out at all?" "Where should I go?"
Like all the other men, why don't you try to do some work and earn some money? Money is not a pebble in the street to be picked up by just going out. Oh, is that so?
I didn't know. I thought it was something to be had in the street. Thus their talk went on, entirely lacking in point.
She had no clear idea of what she expected him to do, and he had no clear idea of what he should do outside the house. He tried it for a few days. His steps naturally led him to the cooperative bank.
But it was clear that he had lost his place. His previous clients only tried to avoid him, fearing that he might accost them for their old dues. He had no one to talk to.
He went through the town like a lost soul, but although to begin with some people spoke to him, now nobody took any notice of him. He could not go down the market road for fear of being stopped by the optician. So after a few days of aimless wandering, he took to staying at home.
It delighted only his little son and no one else. Next door they remarked, "What has come over that man? He is hardly to be seen outside."
Is he hiding from creditors? They had also wondered previously why so much scent of incense emanated from the next house. They must be up to some mischief, perhaps trying black magic on someone they don't like.
We must be careful with such people. As the month came to an end and Margaya had to buy rice and salt for the pantry, he found himself short by 10 rupees, and they had to manage without ghee. His wife declared, "I have never been in this plight before."
Balu made matters worse by asking, "Mother, I want ghee." "There is no ghee, my boy. You must eat your food as it is," Margaya replied.
"I won't," said Balu, throwing away the rice and getting up. "You learn to be contented with what you get," Margaya moralized foolishly. "No.
"I won't. I want ghee," said the boy rebelliously, kicking away his rice plate. "If you kick away your rice, I will kick you," Margaya said, at which the boy burst into tears and appealed to his mother.
She burst into tears too because it reminded her of the story of Gora Kumbar, a potter, who was devoted to the god Vishnu and took no care of his family. At mealtimes his little son demanded ghee, without which, just like Balu, he would not eat. The lady went out to borrow ghee from the next house, leaving the child in the care of the father, who was stamping on wet clay all the time.
When she was gone, he got into a mystic ecstasy and started dancing, and did not notice the child crawling under his feet. And when the mother returned with ghee, the child had been stamped into the wet mud. Margaya's wife burst into tears, remembering this story, which she had seen as a drama in her young days. Margaya, bewildered and pained by all the scene, ate his food in silence, but, without ghee and with all this misery, it tasted bitter.
He decided to search out the priest. "I can't keep quiet anymore. He will have to tell me what is what, otherwise, I will not let him off lightly."
Margaya sought him out late that night. He pretended to go to the temple very late in the evening for worship, and hang about till the crowd cleared. He heard the priest's voice inside the sanctum.
When the crowd dispersed, he moved up to the threshold of the sanctum and peered in. There was a new man there. Margaya asked, "Where is he?"
"Who?" "The other priest." "Why?"
Margaya felt annoyed. Why were these priests assuming such impudent and presumptuous manners? But the priest was in the proximity of God, and Margaya was afraid to speak sharply.
He controlled his voice and temper and answered, "I have some business with him." "What business?" asked the priest, tossing flowers on the image without turning in his direction. "Does this man think he is God?" wondered Margaya.
He is so indifferent. Probably, he thought, the other priest had told him, Margaya may be dropping in often, asking for me. If he comes, show him the utmost rudeness and keep him out.
It seemed quite possible to his sickly imagination. Margaya opened his lips to say something, but in came some devotees with coconut and camphor, and the priest became busy attending to them. Margaya noted with pain the differential treatment that was being meted out.
It's quite clear that he has been told to snub me. See how warm and effusive he is to those people? It is because he hopes to get money out of them. Money is everything, dignity, self-respect.
This fellow is behaving towards me like the cooperative bank secretary. In his mind he saw arrayed against him the secretary, Arul Das, this man, and the washerwoman who abused him on the day his son destroyed the account book. It seemed such a formidable and horrible world that he wondered how he had managed to exist at all.
The priest now came out bearing a plate with a camphor flame on it, which lit up his face. Margaya noted that he was a very young man. The others put money into the plate after touching the flame.
The priest paused near Margaya, who just looked away. "I have paid enough for these godly affairs," thought Margaya. The priest threw a sour look at him and went in.
The devotees left. The priest sat down before the image and started reciting some holy verse. Margaya stood on the threshold.
The other paused during his recitation and asked, "What are you waiting for?" "I'm only waiting for your honor to come out and answer my question." "Am I an astrologer?"
What's your question? This man is practicing studied rudeness on me. He has been taught to, this young fellow,
thought Margaya. His anger rose. He became reckless.
Hey, young man, who taught you to speak so rudely? The young man looked surprised for a moment, and then raised his voice and resumed his recitation. Margaya cried, "Stop it and answer me."
A very devout man, indeed. You want to stop God's work. Who are you?
A youngster like you need not ask unnecessary questions. Learn to give correct answers before you think of putting questions. At your age. The youth asked, "What do you want?"
What I want to know is, where is the old priest? And, if you can, answer without asking why. He has gone on a pilgrimage.
When did he go? About a month ago. When will he come back?
I don't know. Where has he gone? To Benares. From there he is going on foot all along the course of the Ganges, to its very source in the Himalayas.
Why is he doing all this? I don't know. How can I say?
Margaya felt indignant. He walked out of the temple without another word. He felt he had been cheated.
That old priest had played a trick on him, making him waste all his money in performing fantastic things. Benares, Ganges, Himalayas.
How am I to get at him? He wished he could go to the Himalayas and search him out. For a moment he speculated pleasantly on what might happen to the old man there.
He might get drowned in the Ganges, or die of sunstroke on the way, or get frozen in the ice of the Himalayas. Next day he wandered up and down, through the east and the west districts of the town, in search of an idea. He got up in the morning, hoping that some miracle would happen, some chance or fortune be picked up on the doorstep.
He got up early and opened the door. There were the usual goings-on of Vinayak Mudali Street, and nothing more. A curd seller passing with the pot on her head, a couple of cyclists going to a mill, some children running out to play an early game, and so on. But he saw nothing that was likely to bring him the fruits of his penance.
He felt acutely unhappy. He wandered all over the town in search of an idea. He went up to the northern section and sat on the hot sands of the Saryu thinking.
He sat in the shade of a tree and watched the sky and river. His mind had become blank. He went down the market road, looking at every shop.
He was searching for an idea. He watched every trade critically. Tailoring?
Hair-cutting saloon? Why not? Any labor had dignity. But all of them would be more troublesome than anything he had known.
Nobody will give me money for nothing. I must give them something in exchange. He sat on the parapet of the market fountain and thought. What was it that people most needed?
It must be something that every person could afford. The best business under the sun was either snuff or tooth powder or both. It had to be something for which every citizen would be compelled to pay a certain small sum each day.
He was engrossed in profound economic theories. Snuff. His mind gloated over the visions of snuff. The initial outlay would be small, just enough to buy a bundle of tobacco.
He knew all about it, for there used to be a snuff-maker in front of his house. All his equipment was a few cinders of charcoal, a small iron grate, and a mud pot for frying the tobacco in.